Now that we've spent quite a bit of time talking about sort of the negative impacts of stress, we're going to wrap up this chapter by talking about how we can reduce stress and actually enhance our resilience. So, there are behaviors that you can engage in that will help to protect you from the negative effects of stress. And these behaviors can have direct effects on health outcomes or stress buffering effects that would help enhance our resilience to stressors. So they can either sort of directly impact our stress responses or they can make us more resilient to future stressors. Now, some of these activities are going to seem kind of logical to do, but aren't necessarily things that we're good at doing. Again, as we've said, students are very stressed individuals as a group. And so we might know that it's good to be physically active, but it's a lot harder to find time to actually be physically active to get those benefits. But maintaining a physically active lifestyle is one of the best things that you can do for your mental health and your physical health. So, by being active, by moving around, it's going to allow you to sort of reduce your stressor levels, or I guess your stress responses. And there are a bunch of studies that show that physical activity can protect you from the accelerated biological aging that's typically associated with perceived stress. So, if you don't exercise, then you typically experience much faster aging than those who do exercise. So, this can have a protective benefit. Another beneficial thing is maintaining a healthy sleep schedule. Most people should sleep somewhere between 6 and 9 hours of sleep each night. Some people are very fortunate and they have a genetic mutation that means that they don't need as much sleep as the rest of us, so they can get by with sort of 3 to 5 hours of sleep, but most people are going to sit somewhere in that 6 to 9 range. I myself am on the higher end of the schedule. I function much better when I have more sleep, but we can also have issues where too much sleep can also be bad for us as well. On top of sort of being physically active and sleeping well, having a healthy diet is also going to be beneficial in reducing our stress levels. So, a balanced diet where we get sort of a good representation of all of the food groups, where we're not deficient in any important nutrients and all of those levels are working out well, that's going to help us to be more resilient against stress and to do better in the face of stress. But it's not just things that we can do ourselves. We also have factors to consider to do with like our social surroundings. And so the social brain hypothesis proposes that humans and other close relatives evolved fairly large and metabolically expensive brains because of our complex social networks that we live in. So we're actually designed and we've evolved to work in these complex social networks. So, this predisposition to wanting to be in social situations and to evolving to function well in these social networks means that we're going to be seeking out and benefiting from a lot of different kinds of support. So, we can look at four distinct types of support. So, emotional, instrumental, informational, and appraisal support. And we're going to talk about each of these. So, emotional support is probably the easiest to conceptualize. This is when we have expressions of empathy, love, and care. So, if someone is experiencing stressors, we can be an emotional supporter for them and giving them sort of that extra love and care, showing that you're there for them while they're experiencing stress and help them get through that stress a little bit better. With instrumental help, we're looking at sort of tangible actions that you can take. So, if you offer to take notes for someone who can't come to class, that would be an offer of instrumental support. And this can help support people through those stressful times. For informational support, maybe you give people advice or information that can help change the impact of a stressor. Maybe you give them information that will help them cope with a stressful situation. Or maybe you give them sort of an alternative strategy that they could try that helps them approach a problem in a different way and potentially a more positive way. So that's a good kind of support. And then that kind of ties into our appraisal support, where we help individuals evaluate the demands of a situation and the resources that they have available to cope with it. So maybe you remind them that they've experienced this before, that they know what they're doing, that they should approach it this way and not that way. So, lots of possible options. And then the last thing we're going to discuss are some relaxation techniques, ways that we can calm ourselves and then approach stressful situations in a better state. So, mindfulness is characterized by a focus on the present moment and a non judgmental and accepting approach to one's thoughts and feelings. So, being aware and mindful of who you are and where you are and how you're approaching things. And not taking a negative mindset, and sort of being accepting and going with the flow, those kinds of attitudes, those kinds of views, and those kinds of stances can actually help you do better in stressful situations. And then for mindfulness based stress reduction, or MBSR, this is when we can actually look at the fact that we can reduce stress through that mindfulness process. So we can have enhanced physical health, and we can see it sort of represented by sort of reduction in medical symptoms, better, or I guess less intensive pain perception, reduction in physical impairments, and an increase in our quality of life. So there's actually ways to quantify this. So mindfulness and that approach as sort of a holistic category are a good way to go.